The word TARP used to make you think about stuff that needed to be covered up in the rain, like a baseball field, right, or a roof with a hole in it. Well, now the word TARP has joined FEMA, Corvair, and Nixon on the list of words that at one time were totally innocuous, but now really aren't. The only thing George Bush and Henry Paulson's TARP and the old baseball field TARP have in common now is a total lack of transparency. It's time once again for the official Rachel Maddow Show, Lame Duck Watch, because somebody's got to do it. In October, when Congress and the American public were being rushed into bailing out Wall Street, the plan they offered up seemed, even at the time, loosely put together and short on the details. Since then, it's been a rolling avalanche of headlines like, executive pay limits may prove toothless, loophole in bailout provision leaves enforcement in doubt. Or my favorite, where'd bailout money go? Shh, it's a secret. That was an actual wire service headline this week. Well, in the midst of all the confusion and the no transparency, the government gave a giant bailout-related contract to the Bank of New York Mellon. Bank of New York Mellon. We here at the Rachel Maddow Show call them Boney Mellon. Boney Mellon's job is to oversee auctions that were supposed to be run by the government to buy up banks' troubled assets. Except the auctions never happened because the Treasury Department changed its mind after it got the money and decided it would be better just to give our money to the banks. So then what's Boney Mellon's job now that the auctions they got hired to oversee never happened? Are we still paying them? If so, how much are we paying them? Investigators at ProPublica.org have been asking the Treasury for that information, but so far, this is all they have been willing to disclose. Check this out. You see the blacked out part there? It's redacted. How much we're paying this bank to administer the bailout auctions that never happened is blacked out and redacted like it's a state secret or something. Adding insult to injury, or maybe adding injury to insult here, Boney Mellon also got a $3 billion bailout itself. But when asked by the Associated Press what they, Boney Mellon, have done with their bailout money, they were the bank of which the Associated Press said, quote, a spokesman wouldn't share spending specifics and added, I just would prefer if you wouldn't say that we're not going to discuss those details. We're not telling you what we're doing with the money, and don't say that we're not telling you what we're doing with the money. This is the folks who are not only administering the bailout, but also getting the bailout? Does anybody have a TARP I can hide under? Joining us now is author Michael Lewis. He is a former bond salesman for Salomon Brothers. He wrote the book Liar's Poker, which was a behind-the-scenes expose of Wall Street. He also wrote two of the best sports books ever, Moneyball and The Blind Side. Most recently, he's editor of a new book called Panic, the story of modern financial insanity. Mr. Lewis, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
So the financial crisis we're in is man-made, right? This was not an act of God. So
no, out of a clear blue sky. I was talking to someone very knowledgeable about these things recently, and I said, is there any crisis, financial crisis in history that's worse? And he said, he had to think about it. He said, well, you know, right after the outbreak of World War I, they had to close the British Stock Exchange for 6 weeks. But he said, but then you had World War I, and no one was expecting that to happen, so you could sort of understand that. He said, this is probably worse, and it came out of a completely clear blue sky. You know, it was auto-generated by financiers.
And if it is auto-generated, if this is a man-made crisis created by Wall Street, forgive my ignorance, but why are we having Goldman Sachs executives and banks that are currently being bailed out run the bailout?
It's a very good question. I think they're redacting documents because they're afraid you're going to make fun of them if you knew what was in them.
I would.
Well, so this is what I can't figure out. Maybe you can answer this question because you seem to be clear thinking. So you have this problem. You want to save these banks so you have banks around to make good loans into the economy and stimulate economic growth. Why do you start by giving tens of billions of dollars to banks that have done nothing but make bad loans? I mean, they're giving the money to precisely the institutions that caused the problems in the first place. Why don't you go out and find some innocent little bank that didn't sell mezzanine CDOs and didn't get, you know, knee-deep or neck-deep in the subprime mortgage bond business, and who didn't self-destruct, and give them the money. If you got to give the money to somebody, give it to a good banker who's used to making good loans, not to a bad banker who's used to making bad ones.
And if we're going to focus on actually solving the problem and making sure this doesn't happen again and not rewarding failure, isn't it a little bit of a surprise that in all the government action and debate about how to respond here, nobody has moved ahead on regulating Wall Street, which would sort of be getting at the root of the problem?
That would be the beginning of it. And how about the credit rating agencies? I mean, there's been a total institutional failure in the financial system, not just the Wall Street banks, but the credit rating agencies. The SEC is an embarrassment, and yet there's no institutional reorganization. Now, all of the energy in the bailout, so far as I can see, is aimed at preserving the existing institutional structure and the existing institutions. So it makes, I mean, maybe I just don't understand it because it's all so complicated, but it makes no sense whatsoever to me. And I'm a little surprised that that these people who are in the Treasury can get away with the opacity that they've gotten away with. I mean, they're under a TARP. I mean, they're doing all this stuff. And they're doing different things, today than they did yesterday, and they keep changing their minds and changing their strategies, and they've got $700 billion of your money, and yet, nobody seems to be terribly outraged by it. It's actually kind of great in a way. It's amazing that this is possible in this day and age.
It's great as theater, if only they were playing with theatrical money instead of our future.
Yes, I hope there's some left. I just kind of hope there's some left for the Obama administration.
Michael Lewis, editor of the new book, Panic, The Story of Modern Financial Insanity. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me.